Hi, Marguerite. Thanks for being willing to do an interview with us. It's lovely to spend some time with you. Please tell us how you came to TA and a little bit about yourself.
Will do. Thanks so much for this opportunity, Alex. It's great to spend time with you too. Yeah, TA and how I came to TA. I am a certified organizational transactional analyst. I came across TA when I was working in corporate and human resources management and attended a management development course in which some TA models were presented, and I fell in love, went looking for more, came across a wonderful teacher by the name of Colin Brett, who prepared me for 5 years towards my organizational CTA exam, which I did in 2009 in London. And yeah, that's then, in terms of what I do now, that means that I apply TA in my work in organizational contexts.
Wow. So how do you actually do that? Because I think a lot of people are used to TA being applied with individuals.
Okay, yeah. In the organizational field of TA, you're working with organizations as a whole or with teams and departments and divisions within an organization. So what I do is I will be called upon by an organization where they've identified a need for some kind of process to develop the interpersonal skills, the leadership skills, the team development skills within the organization. They might identify that they have a problem. Sometimes it's with conflict management within a team. So it's really all in the soft skills arena. What I do is I will find out what the issue is, how did they come to this need, what are their expectations, what are they hoping to achieve, and I then will design a process for that team or division or whatnot, using TA models. So I get to pick the TA models that work best for the need. Sometimes I go into the organization and I take what I call a toolbox of TA, all the models, and I run a process where we talk as a team until I hear something that says, this TA model will work for you. And I pull that out, teach them the model, they understand and come into awareness through the TA models of what it is that they are doing and how they can then adjust and do things in a better way. So that's really how I use it.
So it sounds like when you're doing the initial engagement with the organization and identifying their need, the analysis is done through a TA lens.
Absolutely, yeah. So from the very outset, when I go into the organization and I'm asked to meet with them to design something, I start with a TA lens. So as I'm sitting and finding out what it is that you need from me, I'm using TA in the background to identify what is being requested of me, what is the relationship that they're asking me to enter into with them, what is the contract. So contracting in TA, what are the unspoken contracts that I need to be aware of as I design this process for them. And in organizations, that's very important because I've had the experience of being asked to fix something. And the temptation is to jump in and rescue and be the big, I'm going to come along and save everything. And then, of course, that's the danger of that would be getting into some form of a drama triangle where I'm trying to rescue whoever it is I'm asked to rescue, and it goes pear-shaped. So I'm very, very conscious of using TA as I'm listening to what the need is, and then of using TA with the groups as I'm listening to what is going on and teaching that to them in groups. Yeah, I also design courses. So a lot of what I do is then designing courses. If they ask me for something like we need management development skills, and I'll use TA or leadership skills in that and run training courses like that as well. So some of my work is the process work, discussion, and bringing people into awareness of what I hear and what it looks like for them and what they could do differently. And then other work is design a course and go in and run that.
So in the process work, if I hear you right, what you're doing is seeing what the need is that emerges out of the relationship you have with the people in the organization, and then picking something from TA that's relevant to understanding that maybe and transforming it.
Exactly. And what I love about TA is there's a number of models. Sometimes you will find one works best. So I like to go in without being rigid about what I'm going to present to these people so that I can see what fits and what works best in their context. So yeah, I might be listening to what they're saying and hear something that sounds to me like discounting. And I'll go, here's a model for you. Take a look at this. It's called discounting. These are the levels of discounting. And what do you think of what's going on now that you have that knowledge? And then allow them to identify the discounts and then look at how they can do things differently. So it really is, I love that work. That's my favorite work, is being able to just let this thing grow organically. You develop together the process. So that's lovely. And I must say, even in my courses that I run, there'll be times when I'm running the course and I have a set agenda, and then there'll be an opportunity for something slightly different. And I'll say, okay, this may not be entirely part of the course, but let me show you something because of what is going on in the room, and then we'll get back on track. So I do go with the flow, flexible in terms of the group need.
Yeah. So in terms of how receptive your clients are to TA, because I imagine you're an expert, you're using a model of psychology, how do people respond to what you're offering them?
People respond very well. I do think that one of my frustrations is that transactional analysis in the workplace, it's used in many management courses. So when I mention transactional analysis, often I get a response that goes, oh yeah, TA, we know that stuff. We did it long ago. And there isn't a very good understanding of the depth to which TA can go, and also of the so many other models that can be applied outside of the usual parent, adult, and child, which is the most well-known. So that sometimes is difficult to get past that. But when I'm actually presenting the models, every single time I do that, it's a wow moment. People just go, oh wow, they see it, the lights go on, and we can then work with what they've seen. So in the work itself, I always have a very, very positive response to what I'm bringing. I mean, TA is about very simply portraying what's going on here in ways that we can grasp, relate to, and understand, and then start to do the work. So it's really well received, I must say.
Have you noticed any themes in terms of the models that you find yourself using in organizations?
Yeah, you know, it does vary, but I suppose most often I'm using the drama triangle. So the victim, persecutor, rescuer, because I hear and see that in people's conversations. So that's and it's a very powerful model. Works very well, so I use that a lot. And then I teach parent and adult and child, but then I extend that into talking about organizational symbiosis. And then the symbiotic chain. That's specifically organizational and often comes up as an issue that people can relate to and go, oh my, I'm in the symbiosis. I play the child, my manager plays parent and adult, and then when to my subordinate, I'm doing the same thing. I'm mirroring that. So that one works very well to allow people to reflect on the relationships in the organization. So that one comes up for me a lot. I think those are the ones that, I mean, there's so much, because in order to get to symbiosis, you go through parent and adult child, you do the transactions, types of transactions. So yeah, that whole gambit. And discounting. Discounting is the other very powerful model to recognize discounts in the organizational setting. My manager, I can't do that. I can't get my subordinates to do the work for themselves. And there's a huge discount in that. So the opportunity to take a good look at that and say, where's the discount? What are you discounting in yourself or in the subordinate? And take it from there. So that's so powerful as well.
Yeah, I imagine. And I'm interested in the leadership workshops and how you put those together, how those work.
Well, again, I customize them. So it depends on what aspect of leadership or what it is. I always ask the question, how did you come to this? How did you come to decide that you need a leadership training course? So that I understand what the organization is really asking for. So, and then I design it using the TA models. But I use other models as well. So I will integrate that with, for instance, the double loop learning theory of Argyris and Sean, and look at, I always use Johari window. I find that a beautiful way to lead in to the rest of leadership development. It's another very powerful model that doesn't come out of the TA stable. So the course then will be broader than just TA models. There's quite a few other organizational models and that I can use. Emotional intelligence is another big one. Yeah, so then I design the course. I always start with self-awareness. You cannot manage others, you cannot lead others until you know yourself, and lead and manage yourself. So we start with self-awareness. We talk about the question of authority. What do we depend on for authority? I have a beautiful quote, and I don't know where it's from, but I usually open up with, and it goes, if who I am is what I have, then who am I when what I have is taken from me? And that, for me, is an introduction to leadership and looking to internally for personal power as opposed to leaning on aspects of power such as hierarchy and status and whatnot. And from
That's
there,
lovely.
Self-awareness, and then into awareness and understanding of the transactions between ourselves and others, and then looking at and also the games people play comes up quite a bit. So I'd introduce that to look at what games do we typically play and how can we extricate from those and do something healthier instead.
Wow, this sounds like really deep work, and just that question got me thinking about the authenticity that starts to stroke in the people who are part of the work.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And you say authenticity. My approach is to be as relaxed and as real as I possibly can, to really engage with people, and sit on the floor instead of behind tables and on chairs, and look at each other eye to eye and speak to each other authentically.
Modeling that.
Yeah, and really also the self-reflection, the opportunity to give them a model and for them to go, oh wow, I do that, or I see that I could do this differently. Sometimes as well, it's quite funny because I'm using this I'm in an organizational setting, but someone will put their hand up and go, my mom does that to me, or that's my brother, so it depends. And then, so there's a holistic learning. People they often say that. If I can share a wonderful little story, I did this work in an organization with teams of machinists, in a factory environment. And after teaching the drama triangle and the discounting and the Johari window one day, the following day, one of the women in this group came to me. She said she hadn't spoken to her son for 2 years. And she took those models and she sat with him that night, and she hadn't slept because she went through it. She showed him what she'd learned, and they used the model to start to talk to each other again.
Wow.
That is, for me,
It's very powerful.
Really beautiful. Yeah.
I'm getting a sense that the space that you're creating and the work in the organization translates into the space between the people in their personal contexts.
It extends. It is a whole process. Another thing in organizations is you often hear people saying, you mustn't bring your problems to work, leave them at the door. And I go, you're a whole human being. You come in the door with your problems. Now let's see what we can do to work with them functionally in the organization. So it is a whole picture. Yeah.
That's lovely work. Marguerite, before we close, what is it that you're working on at the moment?
I've just come back from Abu Dhabi. I was visiting my husband who works there, and I've had the wonderful opportunity of sitting in on a few courses, training courses in leadership management and team development and that whole arena, observing facilitators with a view to starting to work in the UAE for myself. And as I watched the interactions, I was absolutely fascinated and inspired by how we work when we are working with an audience that is a completely different culture to us. We are opposite ends of the scale entirely. I'm used to working in diversity in South Africa because every shape, color, creed, whatnot is in the room. But where it comes, where in fact it's a whole group of people who all have one belief sitting in front of me, and I come from a completely different background. How do I work with that? To find the common ground that you need to find to get to that level of authenticity with each other. And as I observed, I started to design a new course, and it's the psychology of the training room, because I could see and watch for the games that are being played, for instance, between the delegates and the facilitator. And if you're not aware of what those are, you can get played. And to look at the contract and identify what was left out of our contract that needs to be in there. We assume that we know, and we say, okay, so this is what we'll do, and this is how it's going to work for the day, and dive into the training. Having left out a lot of aspects that we don't often talk about how I do things and what I'm used to from my country versus how you do things and what you're used to in your country. So this then got me to looking at the psychology of the training room as a whole, and I've designed a course that I will be promoting soon. It's for facilitators to look at. It's called what I would call the meta process. As I'm teaching you something, what is going on between us? What is the transaction? What are the ulterior messages? What are the invitations to a drama triangle that I, as a facilitator, need to be aware of as I'm doing my training? So that's what I'm working on. I must also just say, working in Abu Dhabi, I was observing, but I also got a chance to facilitate a little bit and assist. And I got the opportunity to work, for instance, with Emiratis, women in full habaya, so that all I could see was their eyes. And that was also so beautifully challenging for me to not be able to read body language and language difficulties and still reach across and meet each other in the middle. So I'm extremely inspired by that.
I can imagine.
Beautiful, absolutely incredible. And we did connect. So that wonderful knowing that when you get past all the stuff, you can meet each other in the middle. And there is common ground to be found, and then we can work together. So I'm very inspired, and that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Yeah, that's very encouraging to hear how you're using TA and obviously other modalities to work in such diverse scenarios and to bring people together. It's lovely.
And it then just boils down to the I'm okay, you're okay. Working in an environment where I do not understand the culture, I've never been there before, I have to stand in that belief entirely. No judgment, no preconceived notions. I'm okay, and so are you. Now let's find a common ground. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's really wonderful. And good luck with your work. And we'll be keeping an eye on your course.
Good, yeah.
That sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
Marguerite Sacco, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to spend some time with you.
Thank you, Alex. It's been great. Take care.